Howdy, and welcome to episode 30 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen, and today is Thursday, June 1st, 2017. I cannot believe that we are in June already. It just seems like the year is speeding past, and speaking of a year speeding past, last time I celebrated the 1-year podiversary. So there is actually a bonus episode, episode 29, that I released last week. That was a special Q&A episode for the podiversary. So if you have not yet watched that Q&A episode, make sure you check it out. Again, that was episode 29. And it was, I filmed it on an off week, so technically last week should have been off. But I wanted to answer the questions that were asked in the podiversary giveaway thread. So also wanted to say thank you to those of you who entered the podiversary giveaway. It was really, really great to read your comments, see some of the things that have kind of, I guess, stuck with you over the past year with various episodes of the podcast. So it was really, really fun to watch that, or to read that. So thank you very, very much for posting your comments. And as of now, the giveaway is over. I did the last drawing yesterday. I don't think you can see them from your angle, but I have the packages for the giveaway all ready to go. So after I finish recording the podcast, I will be making a trip to the post office and getting all of those out in the mail. So since this is a regular episode, we'll go ahead and jump in and talk about today's shirt. For today's shirt, I am wearing I guess it's technically a crossover shirt because we've got the Starry Night painting, but all the elements are based on Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And first of all, just a quick thing about the Starry Night crossover. I have been seeing so many shirts that have done this, that have taken some fandom, some other element, and created this type of shirt. In fact, I have several of them, and I can't remember if I've shown them to you guys yet. If not, you will see them eventually, I'm sure. But this seems to be like one of the popular things to do lately. So I didn't necessarily buy it because of that. I mean, I like that idea, but I really liked that I could get a Monty Python and the Holy Grail shirt. Because I really, really like that movie. Because my background is medieval literature and Arthurian literature is my specialization, people often ask me for recommendations on Arthurian movies. Which one is most authentic? Which one is best? And the quick answer is kind of none of them. None of them are so far are really that good. Many of them claim to be authentic, going back to the original story and whatnot. But yeah, I haven't really seen one that really I would consider a good Arthurian movie. So I actually don't have any recommendations, technically, for Arthurian movies. Part of that is because, yes, it's true that there is not one Arthurian story. There are variations, even in medieval literature. You have the English tradition and the French tradition and the German tradition. Various things like the Holy Grail itself, in some traditions, is a cup. In some, it is kind of a bowl. In the German tradition, it's a rock. So, I mean, there are definitely variations, and so there is room for different interpretations. And so, in many ways, I guess having different interpretations is authentic. And yet, I guess maybe I should say, for me, none of the Arthurian movies that I have seen have been satisfying. So I guess I should kind of clarify that, because it's hard to say what's authentic, because which story do you pick as the authentic version, since there are multiple stories. So I guess that's a better way. None of them, to me, have felt satisfying. But Monty Python and the Holy Grail is fun. It's just, it's hilarious, it's humorous, it's the kind of humor that I like. So I really enjoy watching that. And there are various elements on this shirt. So you've got the swallow with the coconut up here. You've got the wooden rabbit down here. And just various elements that go on. If you have watched the movie, it's kind of fun to pick them out on the shirt. But anyway, so invariably when people ask me, which Arthurian movie do you recommend? I kind of give my answer, well, none of them are really any good. However, I do really like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So I guess that's my recommendation to you guys. If you haven't seen it, give it a try. I think the ending kind of falls a little flat, but I think there are reasons for why they ended the movie the way they did. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It's actually been a little while since I've seen it, so I probably should sit down and watch it. Probably over the summer, since most of our TV shows are on hiatus. We've got time to watch other stuff, so maybe some evening we'll sit down and watch that one. And I've been thinking about it a lot more recently because in picking names for some of my self-striping colors, I have found that picking quotes from Monty Python and the Holy Grail has been kind of what I've been gravitating toward. So the exclusives that I've done recently, the one for DFW Fiberfest and then Houston Fiberfest, both of those names have come from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there are so many quotes and so many names that I could use from that. So I think for a while, some of the self-striping is going to be, the names are going to come from Monty Python. So if you haven't watched it, maybe watching it will help you kind of get some of the names that I may be using. Anyway, so that's my, I guess, recommendation for Arthurian movies. I haven't seen every single one out there, but again, none of them have really truly been satisfying. So that's kind of unfortunate, but also true. One of my professors from my PhD program. So for my dissertation, I actually had two co-advisors. Because the one who I wanted to work with actually left the school and went to a different school right when I was starting my dissertation, and I still wanted to work with her, but since she was no longer affiliated with my university, I had to have co-directors in order to also continue having her be in that role. I could have just had her on my committee, but I wanted her to be in that director type of role. Anyway, so the co-director who still was at Purdue, she did an interview recently on an NPR program about that new King Arthur movie, which I kind of, from what I've seen of it, seems to have a character named Arthur. That seems to be as close to the Arthurian legend as it really is. But she was on NPR and she did an interview, and she actually said the same thing that I'm saying here, that there really has not been a good Arthurian movie, but she thinks that the best one is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So it's not just me. There are definitely other Arthurian scholars out there who feel the same way. So the shawl for today, I actually thought I'd take a slightly different approach, and I want to talk about a shawl that I did not finish rather than showing off something that I finished. So I'm also going to try to kind of turn the camera around and show you pictures from my laptop screen to see if maybe that is easier to see than trying to hold up my iPad. So I'm going to give that a try and talk about it. And if that doesn't work, I guess I will go back to the iPad. So this is a picture of the Evan Star shawl. So this is not mine. This is one of the pictures that is on the pattern page. And it was this picture in particular that really attracted me to this shawl. Just looking at the detail of the various lace patterns, I just think it's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. And the idea of having that completed shawl and knowing that I did that seems just really, really awesome. So about 2010, I started working on the shawl. And I actually had a class that I was taking at my local yarn shop that was kind of pick any shawl and we'll work on it as part of the class. So this is the beginning of my Evanstar shawl. I was using some yarn from Julie Spins, one of my favorite indie dyers. And it starts off with, so it's knit circular, so it starts off with the Emily Ockers cast on, so you can get a circular cast on without a hole in the center. I was not able to do that. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera back around for me, so that way you can see me instead of staring at my failed attempt at this shawl. So the Emily Ockers cast on, the teacher in the class kind of demonstrated how to do it, and I tried doing it, and I couldn't get it. So this was 2010, so 7 years ago. I was having trouble getting it, and so she actually cast on for me. So she did the cast on for me, and then I started the shawl. And at some point, I think that I put down the shawl for a while, and this is before Knit Companions, so I had all the charts and everything in paper copy, and I guess I forgot to mark exactly where I was. And when I went back to it, I didn't find the right place, and it was messed up. I was not using a lifeline because I wasn't really that far on it, so I didn't really think that I needed a lifeline at that point. But it got to the point where I couldn't figure out where I was. So I ripped it out, which meant that I had to do the cast on myself in order to start it over. And so I did, and I thought that I did a decent job on the cast on, but as I continued to work on it, and it got a little bigger, I could see that. So the thing with Emily Ockers cast on is that you're supposed to be able to, when you kind of give a pull on the tail, it's supposed to draw in that circles to make it so it's not a hole. And when I gave a little pull on the tail, my circle did not draw in. So I just thought, well, I can, since I've got the tail here, I can just, when I weave in the end, I can use it to close up the circle, to kind of sew it closed. So that was my plan. But as I'm knitting on it, the whole time I'm just thinking, I'm really unhappy with the way the center looks. I'm really unhappy with the way the center looks. And, I'm working on it, and that is what is going through my mind. And so I put it down again for quite a while. My next entry in my Ravelry account was like almost 2 years later. So in 2012. And again, I had put it down. I was using a paper copy, and I thought I had marked where I was, but I really hadn't. And again, I couldn't figure out exactly. I was pretty sure where I was, but I couldn't figure it out exactly. And the center stitch just really didn't like having that hole there, and it just bothered me. And so finally I decided I need to rip it out again and start it over. Well, I ripped it out, and I did not restart it. And I let the yarn sit because I thought maybe someday I will go ahead and cast this on and do it again. And I didn't. It was like the yarn was, I know this kind of seems silly, but it was like the yarn was taunting me, like, I'm supposed to become an Evanstar shawl. Aren't you going to make me? Why are you waiting? I'm ready to become this shawl. And I kept ignoring it. And I finally destashed that yarn. Instead of casting on the shawl, I gave up and I got rid of the yarn. I didn't even try to find another project for the yarn. I just decided this yarn is out. I'm not going to use it. And so that was, since that was 2012, that was 5 years ago. Now I know how to do Emily Ocker's cast on. I'm a lot more comfortable with that. I actually have a tutorial video for how to do that, which the next time I do it, I may need to watch my own video just to give myself a little reminder. But anyway, but I feel a lot more comfortable with doing that. I feel a lot more comfortable with keeping my place in a huge pattern with a bunch of lace charts, especially using Knit Companion. That really helps me in marking where I am and being able to keep it. If I do put it down for 2 years, it will save the electronic file and I won't have to worry about losing it. So I feel a lot more comfortable in some of my skills, in my ability to perhaps do this pattern. So now I guess I need to figure out, do I want to try this pattern again? It's still a gorgeous shawl. Just looking at the picture this morning, and getting it ready to show you guys, I kind of fell in love with it all over again. So maybe it's time to knit it. So I guess I'm gonna look through my yarn stash, see if I have any and enough yarn that's appropriate. If not, I guess I will need to get some yarn. And maybe it's about time for me to finally knit this shawl pattern. Book update for what I'm designing. Very excited to say that I got the first draft of the layout. So my other task for today, besides recording this podcast, is to look through that draft and see if there are any corrections that need to be made and send that back to the graphic designer. So that also means that I have a draft of the cover. So I have actually already set this up. My newsletter that is going out next week on Tuesday, so calendar, that will be June the 6th. So in that newsletter, I will be sharing a reveal of the cover. So if you would like to see that, make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter. And if you're not already subscribed, I will include a link to that in the show notes. Or the website address is karendondesigns.com/list. So again, I will link to it in the show notes, but also mention it here. So make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter, and on Tuesday you will get to see the cover. So it's really exciting. We actually used pretty much a very similar layout to my first book because I really wanted these. Although they are separate topics, one is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and the other one is Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls. One is a book of shawls, one is a book of cowls. I really wanted them to kind of look like they came from the same designer, the same publisher, and so the actual internal layout is very similar to the first book. So, but in many ways it looks different because all the patterns and some of the colors and stuff are different. So that's really exciting. So basically what happens next is after we get the final version, so it depends on how many corrections might need to be made. After we get the final version, we ask for a proof copy from the printer. And when we get that, we make sure that everything looks okay in there and no changes need to be made. Last time when the graphic designer got the proof copy, she realized some of the colors didn't print quite right, and so she had to make some adjustments. So there might be, some time to then have to kind of take care of any of those corrections. But I'm hoping that means that I will have the proof copy that I can bring with me to Houston Fiber Fest and kind of let people look at it there. That's my hopeful goal. It might be kind of pushing it because it takes them, I think, usually like about 2 weeks to do that proof copy. So we'll see. Houston Fiber Fest is the 23rd through the 25th of this month. So that's just 3 weeks away. So yeah, we need to really get moving on that. But basically, as soon as I get the proof copy and I know that things are ready to move forward, I will have pre-orders going for the book. And then and during the pre-orders, that'll give me an idea of how many copies to do in the initial print run, and then I will order those, and as soon as the printer gets those to me, we will have the release date. And I need to figure out dates and everything, but the idea, so for those of you who are local to the DFW area, I've already talked to Elisa of the Knitting Fairy, and I think we're going to try to do a release party. So we'll get dates and details and things figured out, and I will be sure to let you guys know. Again, if you are interested in those types of things, yes, I will give you guys updates on the podcast, but the best way to find out about all of this stuff is to make sure you're on my mailing list. So again, we'll link to that in the show notes. So for dyeing, I am pretty much really working on Houston Fiber Fest stuff, because now that we're in June and Houston Fiber Fest is in June, it's really fast approaching. Like I said, just a tad over 3 weeks. So I've got a lot of work still to do, but I have the exclusive Houston Fiber Fest colorway, which I showed you guys in the skein last time. So now I actually have a completed sample sock. So the whole sock is done, yay! So if you are going to Houston Fiber Fest, you need to look for this, because that is the only place that it will be available. And the colors I based off of Diana Couture's special Houston Fiber Fest. So again, you can see Houston Fiber Fest there, and then the Leicester logo. So she designed this fabric, and she created bags for Houston Fiber Fest, and this is one style of bag. This is called the Yarn Owl, and then she has several other types of bags that will have this fabric. And I've started a second sock, so I've only basically gotten the cuff done. I'm just at the point where I'm finished with the ribbing. And the reason I am knitting a second sock is because since this is an exclusive colorway, I am only needing a sample sock for the one show, and what's the point of having one sock? I need a pair so that I can actually wear them for myself. So I'm finally knitting a second sock out of one of my colorways. So kind of little confession time. I have never knit a second sock out of any of my own self-striping colorways because they have always been sample socks. So I don't get to wear them. They basically are there to show how the colorway looks. So they're just in my booth. So this is the first time that when I complete this second sock, I will have a pair of socks in my own yarn for me to actually wear. But I will show this at Houston, and then it will become my sock. So that's kind of exciting. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So doing a lot of dyeing for Houston Fiber Fest. And then I think once Houston Fiber Fest is done, I have my trunk show for the DFW Yarn Crawl. The DFW Yarn Crawl is kind of the mid to end of August, and I will be doing a trunk show at the Knitting Fairy. So I will need to make sure that I have plenty of yarn for that trunk show. So I will basically, as soon as I get back from Houston, I will start dyeing, and mostly it'll be self-striping because that's usually what I sell out of and run low on. So I will be doing a lot of dyeing for the DFW Yarn Crawl, and then after that I don't really have a show until kind of going all the way back around to DFW Fiber Fest. So I will have time to. What I'm basically going to do is work on developing some new colors. So I am going to develop the next yarn club. So I need to work on that. But I also think that I'm going to work on some new self-striping colors. And what I'd really like to do is to have a new self-striping color like every month. It might be every other month. I don't know. It'll kind of depend on how often I'm able to come up with something that I like, because I don't want to just come up with something to come up with something. So to get something that I like, but I want to add some more self-striping, and I think I'm going to play around. All of my stripes have been even, so the same width, I guess, of each stripe, except in one color is Pledge Me Your Word. That's that neon colorway that has the neon parts are thicker, which basically is how I did it. It's two of these stripes, is the neon part, and then it has kind of a, not the same blue, but it's got kind of a turquoise in there. That's the thinner stripe. But I think I want to play around with different stripe lengths. So that might be some of what I do as well in some of the newer self-striping colorways. So we'll kind of see, some of them will be the even stripes, and then I think I'll play around a little bit with uneven stripes, I guess, and kind of see how that turns out. So the year, is just marching right along, and have lots of stuff, but I know I will have that gap between shows, so I will be able to basically develop new things. For what I'm knitting, obviously I'm working on the pair of socks with the exclusive Houston colorway. I also am working on the sample sock. I think I showed you guys this last time. This is my Great Cheer colorway. So it was one of my earlier colorways, but I had never knit a sample of it. So it's finally getting a sample, and I think I'm just at the point where I am ready to do the heel. I might need to do one more blue stripe, so I'm right at the color change. I need to measure this, and usually I do 7 inches for the leg. So I need to measure it and make sure I'm at 7 inches. If not, one more stripe should do it, because I was really close. And then I will be able to start the heel. So I should be able to finish this sample for Houston Fiber Fest. That's kind of my goal for finishing it. So I guess I've got 2 socks on the needles. And then here is my rice fields. So it has gotten bigger. So there's that side. And then since it's brioche, it's basically 2-sided. So here is this side. And it's now at the point where it is bigger than my cable, so I can't really stretch it out and show you the whole thing quite here. But basically, I still have a fair amount of yarn, so I'll just show you one of them. So here's my pink. So there's still, it's pretty squishy, so it's not, there's not a lot in there, but I still have a fair amount of yarn. And my idea basically is just to knit until I run out of yarn. This is a pattern where you can pretty much you don't have a border, so you pretty much cast off when you are at the point where you only have enough yarn to cast off. So this section, I am at the halfway mark. So if I were to actually complete this section, I am at the row count exactly. Just this morning I got to 19 repeats, and there are 38 total for this section. So I know that I am not going to be able to complete another 19 repeats, because just in weighing my yarn, I know that I don't have enough. But I think I'm going to get quite a few more repeats. And so I think this section will definitely be bigger. I wanted to make sure that this top section is bigger than this middle section, and I don't remember how many repeats the other one is. I am almost at that point, so I'm very close to that point where the top section will be bigger. I just to make it look right proportionally, I guess. I just feel that section, since each section grows, so if you look from the beginning, so you have this section, then this one's a little bigger, and this one's bigger, so it just feels more right to have this one be bigger. So that should happen. So that is really where my focus is on for my knitting. Each repeat is 4 rows, or 4 rows that you're working. In brioche, it's technically 2 rows, because I think I mentioned last time you knit 1 row with one color, and then second row with the next color, and technically that is 1 brioche row. But anyway, so each set of repeats, or each repeat, is taking me just under an hour. That's how many stitches I now have on the needle. So because of the way brioche works, and it's easy to lose your place, I don't work on this unless I know for sure that I have an hour to sit down and work on it. So that's why some of the socks have actually gotten done pretty quickly, because if I don't have an hour to work on one of these repeats, then I pull out a sock and work on that instead. Or sometimes, you know, I'll sit down, so in the evening when we watch TV, I'll sit down and work on this, and then maybe we don't quite have another hour to work a second repeat, and so then I'll pick up the sock and work on it for the other rest of the evening. So it actually has worked really well as far as kind of spreading my time across a couple of projects. So put this back in the bag. I don't, since it's taking me an hour for repeat, probably I've got another, maybe I can get another 10 repeats, maybe, I don't know. So 10 hours of work left on it. We'll see. Kind of curious to see how many repeats I can get done on it. But that is what I'm working on. I have several projects in the planning stages that I want to work on. I think I showed you guys the hand spun yarn that I want to work on. It's actually right here. I did cake it. So this is that hand spun that I showed you guys last time. I'm planning on making a shawl for my mother-in-law. I've narrowed it down to 2 shawls. I just have to make that final decision on which one I want to knit, and then I can get started on that. I have a gift project that I want to make that I need to get started on. I also have that yarn ready to go. And again, I've narrowed it down to 2 projects, so I need to decide on that. And then since I'm just knitting lots of socks, I figured I might as well knit more socks. Excuse me. Why not have yet another pair of socks on the needles? Why not? And I have been collecting, I think I have 7 or 8 different colorways of mustache yarn. And her self-striping she does really, really awesome self-striping. Some that are many, many more stripes than I even could imagine dyeing myself, just with my own setup and equipment. I don't know how she does hers. But I have several Star Wars ones, and I will show you in what I'm stashing. I just got a couple of new ones. But I have not actually knit any of my mustache yarn. So I think I need to pick one of the skeins of mustache and go ahead and start a pair of socks out of it, because I don't want to keep collecting the yarn and never using it. So I think I just need to break down, pick out a skein, and use it. So maybe next time I will have more things on the needles to show you guys. I have some things that I've added to my stash in the past 2 weeks. So in the What I'm Knitting right at the end, I mentioned mustache yarns. So she had I think Great Reads, that's what she's calling it, a Great Reads kind of theme. And so she picked several books. She started with 5 different books and created a self-striping colorway based on each of those books. And she had a already dyed set of skeins, and she opened up her shop update, and I set my alarm so that I could be sure to get on my computer and try to get to what I wanted as soon as the update went live. And there were 2 of the 5 that I really wanted, and so I was able to get both of those 2 since I was there right at the beginning of the update. Now she is doing pre-orders, basically. So a dye to order, and I don't know where she is in that process. Since I got the ones that I wanted, I haven't really been paying attention for the dye to order process, but that is something, if you are interested in self-striping sock yarn, you should check out Mustache Yarns. Join her mailing list, because then you are notified of when she does her updates. So I was trying to remember the 5 books. I'll show you the 2 that I got. I remember Mary Poppins was one, Narnia was another one, and then the 2 I got, and I'm blanking on the 5th one right now, but there was a 5th one as well. So I got a one inspired by The Hobbit. So not all those who wander are lost, and it's hard to tell on her yarn exactly what it's going to look like, because this one has 10 stripes. So when I show you the yarn in the skein, all you see is a bunch of colors. but there are 10 different stripes in here, and this one is 10 even stripes, she says. So this is the one that is the Lord of the Rings inspired, Hobbit inspired one. So really like that one. Maybe it'll be the next one I cast on. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I got that one. And then she also had one for Harry Potter. And of course I had to get the Harry Potter one. And this one was really neat because she took the covers. So the covers that each have a specific kind of color. And she used those covers of the books as inspiration. And these are 8 uneven stripes. And the colorway is The Boy Who Lived. So if you are familiar with those covers of Harry Potter, maybe you can see, especially the red and orange, but you can also see there's purple in there and the green. So if you're familiar with those covers, maybe these colors will kind of jump out at you. And I forget exactly what this looks like knit up, but I know, and you can kind of tell from the skein, that the orange and the red are thicker stripes. And then I think there's kind of this golden brown in here. I think that was a thinner stripe. I don't really remember, but she had a little sample knit up, and I really liked the way it looked. So I had to get that. So again, this first set of great reads, she had Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Mary Poppins, Narnia, and a fifth one that I don't remember right now. But I think she's planning on doing other great reads, inspired ones in the future. So again, if you're interested in anything like that, if you have not subscribed to the Mustache newsletter, make sure you do that. That's the best way because her updates sell out. And so the best way to be able to snag something is to know exactly when the next update is going to be there right when that update goes live, and get it. But I have more stash. My 2 fiber clubs that I am part of, I got shipments from them. So the first one is that Elemental Fiberworks, the Visions of Fiber Club, where she's using the NASA posters as inspiration. So this is our inspiration postcard. So the name of this is actually a planet name, apparently. She gave us a little note and said that, excuse me, as of May 1st, 2017, there have been 3,608 exoplanets discovered by various means since the first confirmed discovery in 1992. We aren't going to visit all of these. It sounds a little time-consuming. Yeah, I imagine 3,600 braids of yarn, different colorways, would be a bit time-consuming. But this one, HD 40307G, is interesting because it is in the habitable zone of its star, making it in the right spot for potential life if other conditions are appropriate. So that sounds kind of interesting. But anyway, so look, if you look at the colors there of the postcard, then the colors here, really, she did a good job interpreting those colors, I think. So again, yellows are not the thing that I gravitate toward, but it's got greens and blues in here. So I think that will be interesting, and especially because the yellow, and I almost wonder if she just used, to get the green, if she just used yellow and blue together, because I don't know if you can see in the camera, but the green really does look like more of a blend of the yellow and the blue rather than an actual like green dye by itself. So I'm kind of thinking about spinning this and how I want to spin it, and kind of mixing the colors and how I want that to come out. You know, do I want to try to preserve the colors, the yellow and the blue and the green, or do I want to do even more mixing of them in the yarn? So something to think about in spinning, you know, whenever I actually spin this stuff. Again, I always say I need to make more time for spinning. Hopefully that will happen. So then, sorry for leaning out of the screen there. Then I got my other fiber club. So this is the Sheep Spot, and since I got the undyed version, I can just show you because it doesn't give anything away. This is the Sheep Spot Fiber Club, And this is our last shipment. So this was a breed study type of club where we got different breeds, and for the most part they were breeds that I wasn't completely familiar with and I didn't have samples of, so it was exciting to get new things. So this is our last shipment for this year's club, which means she's going to be opening up the fiber club for next year pretty soon. I think she said toward the end of June. Actually, you know what? I think it's here in our little letter. Yes, the next club's opening will be June 21st. So if you are a spinner and you are potentially interested in getting different types of breeds, make sure to check out Sheep Spot, and good timing for the next club to open. And she offers these both undyed, like I got, and dyed. So I've seen the colors that she's used to dye the club, and they've been really, really pretty. But because I'm really treating this as an exploration of spinning the breeds, or eventually when I get to spinning them, I wanted them undyed because the dyeing process can change the fiber a little bit, and I really wanted to see what it was like to spin unchanged. So I'm gonna admit, when I pulled this out and read what this was, I was a tad bit disappointed because, like I said, part of what I really love about this club is that I am getting breeds that I haven't ever spun before. And this one is Polworth. Now it is a blend. Yeah, now the light is coming in, so you probably can't see it. It is a blend of Polworth and silk, so it's 80% Polworth and 20% silk. And I was disappointed because I've spun Polworth before, and I also even have some Polworth and silk in my stash to spin. So there was a little moment of disappointment there. I'm just gonna be completely honest. It's gorgeous. I mean, I can tell that there's silk in it, and it feels really nice, and it will be great to spin. I have enjoyed spinning Polworth, so I'm not disappointed necessarily about getting it because I know I will enjoy it. That's the thing I'm disappointed though. I know I will enjoy it. I liked getting things that I was not familiar with in this club. However, she did say in the letter that this is an organic Polworth that is GOTS certified, which means Global Organic Textile Standard. So she said this comes from family farms on the Falkland Islands. The sheep are raised organically on carefully managed lands, and the wool is processed in accordance with GOTS specifications. So, and so that, I think that's really neat. And I don't know, because in the past my Polworth has always just said Polworth. It's probably not been this specifically GOTS certified, so this organic Polworth. And I think it's really cool. It says it comes from family farms on the Falkland Islands. So reading the note was helpful in making me more excited about the Polworth. I think that it might be kind of extra special Polworth. So maybe it will be slightly different to spin compared to some of the Polworth that I've spun in the past. So after reading the note, I'm a lot more excited about getting this as our last shipment of this fiber club. And that is what I have added to my stash in the past 2 weeks. So I hope you guys are participating in this quarter's knit along for the podcast. I know several of you are, but you still have a month left of this quarter. So the quarter ends on June 30th. So it is not too late to join. You can definitely still start the knit along or crochet along. I always call it a knit along because it's just easier to say knit along by itself rather than knit along / crochet along. But I do want to make sure if you are a crocheter, you can definitely join in. But anyway, the theme for this quarter is any shawl that uses at least 2 different colors of yarn, and not like one yarn that's variegated and has multicolors. So 2 different skeins of yarn with different colors. And you could have way more than 2. Somebody knit a Find Your Fade, so 7 different colors for this quarter's knit along. but at least two different colors in the shawl. So that is the theme. And there are so many options out there, especially recently. That seems to be kind of the more current fad, to have multiple colors in a shawl. So lots and lots of options out there. You have a month, so even if you haven't started, I think you can still pick out a shawl and get started and complete the knit along in time. To entice you, I wanted to show you the yarn that I picked out for the giveaway. So after the quarter, I will go to the FO thread. So there is a chat thread and an FO thread. So I will go to the FO thread, so everyone who has finished a shawl for the knit along, and use random number generator and pick one of the entries at random, and that person will win. And at my local yarn shop, Allison has been dyeing yarn kind of specifically for the yarn shop, and she started out mostly with a bunch of mini skeins that are in lots of different colors, so gradients of different colors. And there's like a whole wall. So if you've ever been in the Knitting Fairy, there's a whole wall of these mini skein gradients, and it's just really gorgeous to look at. But she started doing more full skeins, and she is doing a line of yarns called ley lines. And so when I was in the Knitting Fairy last week, I decided to pick up some of that yarn as the giveaway yarn, and I picked two different colors. Colors that I think coordinate together, so that way if you want to use them together on a project, then you can, or if you win this yarn and you decide you want to use them on separate projects, that's fine too. But since this quarter's theme is the at least two colors shawl, I thought it would be fun to have two colors that went together as the giveaway. So here they are. And hopefully you can see them in the light because they're pale colors. So this is a speckled skein. So it has some purples and pinks and grays in there. I think that's a gray. Might just be really dark purple. Actually, I think it's really dark purple. So purples and pinks on a lighter base. And then this one is more of a solid light purple, although there are sections that are a little darker in here. And I actually kind of see almost heading toward blue in some sections down here. So I think this is definitely a very nice tonal with different tones yarn. But I think they do go nicely together. So again, you can use them together or separately. But that is what this quarter's winner will get. So if you are participating in the knit along, make sure by the end of the day on June 30th that you have posted your finished shawl in the FO thread. And basically July 1st, I will do the drawing to see who wins that gorgeous yarn. Though, I don't know, it's going to be hard to give it away. That's the hard part about picking out such gorgeous yarn. But I told you guys that that's what the winner is going to get, so I will have to give it away, and maybe I'll have to go back to the shop and pick up some yarn for myself. So that should be lots of fun. We already have, I think there are 4, maybe 5 finished objects so far. So again, you still have a month. Good chances of winning. So have fun, good luck. I will link in the show notes to the thread on Ravelry so you can see where to go to join in. What I am reading and watching. So what I'm reading on my Kindle, I am still working on that second book, the sequel to Discovery of Witches. I'm really at the point where I should have given up on the book. It's interesting, but I'm not feeling compelled to read it, and so that's why I am still working on it, because it's just not something that I am picking up to sit down and read. But now I'm at the point, so on the Kindle I can see percentage. I'm at 82%, so I am a lot closer to the end of the book, so I think I will just keep going through it and finally hopefully get to the end of it, hopefully before the next podcast. If I'm not done with it in 2 weeks, if I tell you guys next time that I am still reading that book, please tell me to give up on it. because I think at that point I have spent way too much time on this book. So what are the problems with it? I think I mentioned last time that half of the book, they didn't really go, I mean, they physically went somewhere, but they really weren't doing anything. They were just kind of waiting around, and time was passing. So it just didn't feel like there was any progress in the book. But I'm also having problems with it because the romantic relationship just doesn't feel very healthy. The male is a vampire, and he is very possessive, very, this is my territory, this woman is my territory. And sometimes he just feels a little too much, too over the top, too controlling. And sometimes she does kind of, react to that, and she doesn't always take it, but other times she kind of does, and I don't know, it just does not feel like a very positive relationship, and so I guess I'm not really liking his character very much, which means that I'm not as interested in finding out what happens to him, and therefore to them. So I guess that has a lot to do with it as well. So at this point, I guess even if there is a cliffhanger at the end of the second book, I am not going to read the third book unless something changes in this last 18%. Then I do not think that I will continue on and read the third book. I know other people have read this and really, really enjoyed it, so it just doesn't seem to really be for me. So that's what's been on my Kindle. As far as what I am listening to, audiobooks, I don't remember last time if I was still listening to the Alexander Hamilton biography, but I have definitely finished that, and I moved on to another audiobook. So one of my favorite fantasy authors is named Robin Hobb, so Robin and then Hobb, and I will link to her website in the show notes, and then the particular books that I've been listening to as well. But years and years ago, she released a trilogy, the Assassin's Trilogy. So it is Assassin's Quest, Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest. Those are the names of the books. And it was a series of books that my best friend Emily and I at the time, we just fell in love with these books. They were really, really wonderful. And then Robin Hobb released another trilogy of books that was within the same world, but a different location in the world. And those were pretty good, but not quite as good as that original series, especially the main character of the original series, Fitz. Just a really, really good character. One of those super well-rounded characters. And so I think that was part of the problem with the ship series, that Fitz wasn't in them. Although, not going to give too much of a spoiler, but I will say that there is a character from the first trilogy that shows up in the second trilogy in an unrecognizable form. You don't find out till the end of that trilogy what character that was. So, since people liked the Fitz book so much, I know that the author got questions all the time. When are you going to write another series about Fitz? When are you going to write another series about Fitz? And she said, I left Fitz in a good place. He didn't get a happily ever after ending, but it was at least he was content. He was settled. He didn't get everything that he desired. He didn't end up with the woman that he loved, but he was okay. And she's like, I left him in a pretty good place. Maybe if I come up with a good story for him, I might write more. And she did. She wrote another trilogy. I believe she called that the Golden Fool trilogy. Fitz and the Fool are the two kind of main characters that that trilogy was about. And in that one, again, kind kind of horrible things happen to Fitz, but in the end, he gets to a point where he is able to settle. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but I'll say he's kind of in a happier place in the end of that trilogy than he was in the end of the first trilogy. So it was kind of, okay, you know, this is actually kind of nice to see what continued to happen to him. And again, I'm sure she's gotten questions. When are you going to write more about Fitz? When? And she did. So more recently, the third trilogy about Fitz has come out. And this one is actually Fitz and the Fool. I think that's what the trilogy name is. So the first book came out 2 years ago, I think. I would have to double check on the publication dates. But I listened to it when it came out. So I listened to it on audiobook. And I mostly liked it. I do think in some ways that maybe it would have been nice to leave Fitz at the happier ending that he was at. Because there were some sad things that happened in that book. But I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed being back with that character. So the second book came out, and I don't remember exactly when it came out, but I know that I was just kind of busy doing other things, and I think I just kind of missed that second book. So more recently, the third book of the trilogy has come out, and since the third book was out, it was like there's no reason to not read, you know, the second and now the third book, and it'll be nice that I can, you know, just jump right from the second to the third book. So that was a really long book. The second book I think was like 30 some odd hours. So it was a pretty lengthy book. But it was something that I was really interested in and really into, and so I did listen to it, you know, while I'm folding laundry and obviously reskein yarn and all of that. So I got through it pretty quickly, and so glad actually now that I did not read the second book when it first came out, because man, that one ends on a cliffhanger. Oh my gosh. So fortunately, the third book was already out, and I was able to immediately go to the third book and start listening to it and continue on with the story. So it turns out to be a really good thing that I didn't listen to the second book when it came out. So I'm only about, I think I'm in the third hour of the third book, so I'm still at the beginning of the third book. But it will be very interesting to see how this trilogy wraps up. Fitz is getting old, you know, he's a lot older now. You know, how is she going to leave him this time? And then is she ever going to eventually, you know, years in the future, decide to write more about him? But I'm really enjoying it. If you have not read anything by Robin Hobb before, I definitely recommend, in particular, these three trilogies. The Ship trilogy, I think was pretty good. She has two other, or actually, I think one trilogy and one set of two, about the Rain Wilds, which is kind of an again in the same world but a different location. And then she has a trilogy that's in a completely different world and a completely different character set. And I really did not. I finished that trilogy, but I really didn't feel like it was up to the same standards as her other books. So I actually don't really recommend that one. But any of the other books about Fitz or about the Rain Wilds, or anything kind of in that world, I think she's really a good storyteller. And really creates great characters, which is part of what I love in stories. So that's what I am currently reading and listening to. As far as watching, most of our shows now are on hiatus. We've seen season finales of many of them, and just for spoiler purposes, in case you know you have stuff on your DVR that you haven't watched, I don't want to give away too many things. I will just say that the very, very end of Flash just about killed me. So we'll see what happens next time when Flash continues. Kind of upset the way they ended Flash, but I'll definitely continue to watch. So there are a couple of shows that we actually still have on the DVR. We've got several episodes of Supergirl that we need to catch up on, so we're not completely finished. but we have kind of turned more toward Netflix to see kind of what's available there. And the new season of House of Cards just came out. So last night we watched 2 episodes of that. And I've got to say, I have enjoyed, the previous seasons of House of Cards, but it almost feels, I don't know, I guess I'm not enjoying the political wranglings quite as much as I used to. And I don't want to get off on politics here. But it doesn't seem to be quite as fun to watch. We'll kind of see what happens with the rest of the season. I will still watch it, but I'm not quite getting the same level of enjoyment out of this so far as previous seasons. But the other show that I started watching, Jarrett really hasn't been watching it, is the new Netflix original Anne with an E. So based on Anne of Green Gables. I really like Anne of Green Gables, and at first I was hesitant to watch it because I mean, obviously I love the book itself, but as far as television adaptations or screen adaptations, I really like the I guess they're the mini series. I don't know what you want to call it. So there are three volumes, I guess, that Anne was played by Megan Follows. And I really, really like those. The third one went completely away from the books and really was a very different story, but I still enjoyed it. I thought that it was still in the spirit of Anne for sure, even though the story itself wasn't based on the book. But especially the first 2 were just really, really faithfully done. I think the casting was really well done, and I really enjoy those. That Gilbert, played by Jonathan Crombie, just a fantastic Gilbert. If you're not familiar with Anne of Green Gables, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But I really, really like that Gilbert. And it's sad because Jonathan Crombie died in 2015. I think he was only 48 or something like that. So it's kind of sad, and that is my Anne and my Gilbert. And so kind of thinking about trying to start over with new actors and a new interpretation of Anne and Gilbert and all the other characters, I was kind of resistant to, because I know there's another kind of newer adaptation that also came out, and I haven't seen that one. But I thought, I'm going to give it a try. And so far I've watched 5 episodes, and I like it. I don't think it'll replace the other one as far as my favorite, but I am enjoying it. I think that they have done a really good job, especially in the first episode, of creating the relationship between Anne and Matthew. So Matthew is, there's a brother and sister that adopt Anne. And so Matthew is the brother. So kind of then becomes the father figure for Anne. And it just really beautifully shows their relationship. In the second episode, there's this whole part where Anne basically gets sent back to the orphanage because of a mistake. That Marilla thinks that she has stolen Marilla's brooch when really it's unfortunately been misplaced, and sends Anne away. And Anne goes all the way back to the orphanage, and they find the brooch, and Matthew realizes they made a mistake, and he goes chasing after her. And like the whole second episode is basically Matthew chasing after Anne and trying to get her back. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, it has been a while since I've read the book, but I really don't remember this being in the book. And so I did go back to the book, and I flipped through it, and I did not see anything that seemed to be that going all the way back to the orphanage and Matthew having to chase after her type of thing. So that seems to be something that they created just for the show. And so it may not be necessarily the most authentic as far as exactly following the book, but I definitely think they are getting the spirit of Anne. And kind of letting myself be open to having new interpretation of Anne of Green Gables. But I'm enjoying watching that so far. So if you are an Anne of Green Gables fan, I think that it would be worth checking out if you have not already checked it out. And I believe it is a Netflix original, so you would have to watch it on Netflix. Yeah, so I'm seeing by the time that this is a pretty lengthy section, but there has been quite a few things that I've been reading and watching lately. So I guess I'm pretty sure that's about it, as far as things that I wanted to talk about. Thank you very, very much for watching this episode of the podcast. Again, still can't believe that we are already into June, that we are coming close to being halfway through 2017. Almost at the end of the second quarter. Again, make sure that that if you are joining in with the knit along for this quarter, that you get your finished object posted by June 30th, so that way you can be entered into the giveaway for that gorgeous yarn. But you've still got a month, so it's not too late to start if you have not started your 2+ color shawl yet. And then also toward the end of the month, I will we'll talk about the theme for the third quarter knit along. Oh, wow. Again, time just speeding by. Anyway, again, thank you very, very much for watching. If this was your first time checking out the podcast, thank you very much for checking it out. I hope you'll come back, possibly watch some of the earlier episodes. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for continuing to come back and listen to me talk about what I'm knitting and dyeing and stashing and reading and watching. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you are watching on YouTube, please click the thumbs up button underneath the video. Just helps show other people that you liked it and helps new people find the podcast. If you have not hit subscribe already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And I will be back in 2 weeks. So checking the calendar, today's the 1st, so on the 15th, so mid-month, I will be back. And we'll see what I've been doing in the next 2 weeks. So I hope you guys have a wonderful start to June and happy knitting.